Hello, I'm DB Velocity, and I'm back with another installment of a small series that focuses on working with the MPC One and family of instruments while in the standalone environment. In this new session, I'll be looking at the plug-in instruments, which incidentally just received a major update to 2.9, adding a new drum synth into the foray. In this video, I'll begin with a breakdown of some sounds that I created for the isolation session MPC plugins video I did a few months back, and if you haven't seen it, you can watch that like up there. And it's essentially where I utilized only the plugin instruments to do a quick jam by the end of the video. So here in this video, you'll get a quick walkthrough of the sounds that I used, though at the time of that video, I was obviously restricted to the 3 synth plugins, as I made simple percussion elements using the tube synth, right? So I'll be moving forward by testing out some new drum synth abilities with that old project. Then I'll just play with the tools at hand, and perhaps we can find some special tricks when using the plugins. So without further ado, it's time to explore. So I have here my project loaded from the isolation session video, and I'll show you the basic sounds I have. So here on track 1, we have this bass sound, and it's pretty much just the bassline synth playing the analog square preset. So let's solo that. And it should be noted that when you load this sound, or rather mostly the other sounds on your device, that they will be somewhat different, as I've merely used these presets as starting points. So if I reload in this preset again, it will shift to the default settings. I find that I prefer to just change settings around for a given project and then save the project as a whole, which will keep everything as I need it. There isn't usually a need to save the individual presets into the user banks unless it's one that is created from a basic initialized patch without a project to save to. After all, I tend to build each song up with fresh or newly modified sounds rather than recycling many of them. Let's take a look at track 2, for example, which comes in on sequence 3 here. So we can listen to this solo. So this was inspired by a preset under the leads. Here we go. Analog twack. So quite different, right? And that's because, you know, I did actually save this one in the user banks, but I changed like the octave of oscillator 1, and I played with the envelope settings, you know, to get everything dialed in the way I wanted. That's how that sound evolved. Moving on to track 3, we have the electric sound, which this is the pianette, but there again, it's swinging from the source because the original has lessened the effects and is a little too bright and harsh and all that. So, you know, I dial these things in. I find the sound that's kind of close, and then I dial it back or change things around to make it work all in context, right? Now, the last sound in my tone palette is a sub bass and is only tweaked to sit properly with the other tones. So I could have easily spent a lot more time on all of this mixing, but I was more focused on getting a performance together and showcasing some typical sounds, albeit ones that I went and altered. So we can listen to what that default sounds like. Just really buzzy and kind of harsh, but that provided a lot of the harmonic content for me to filter down. So there I have a basic few sounds taking up the bottom 4 pads in the track mix. And looking at the drum sounds here, bass drum, snare, and hat on 5, 6, and 7, you can see that my track layout overall is pretty simple, with the sculpted percussive elements also being quite rudimentary. The patterns sure aren't anything special. You may also recall that I only have the 8 plugin tracks total in Standalone, and in the jam session I set track 8 to be the free voice for live play with a few extra presets. I also explained that I basically just went to presets that I liked and then saved them in the user folder so that I could easily scroll between them. So let's go ahead and kick these old drum sounds from scratch to the curb, and I'll find some new drum synth tones to use. I will set track 5 to be the multi-drum plugin. Only one instance of the multi is allowed per project, with the 8 models being accessed simultaneously. Also, the rest of the banks and pads are locked out from playing. Not a big deal, because where we have limitations, we also get creativity. So right away, I select that, I get this message as I'm currently using this old plugin on other sequences. So we want to verify replacing the program for the bass drum track on all 6 sequences. I need to be sure to select assign as the option for the new program. In this one instance, will display another pop-up stating that the action failed for the single sequence, as I am currently at capacity. It is 8 programs total per project, so I must abide to continue by assigning the new program for all sequences in the project. Let's hit play on a sequence here and make some adjustments. So right away, I take that solo off, and we can hear that there's no bass drum going on. Here's what I gotta do. I gotta go to the grid and find those notes. I'm gonna have to transpose them down to a pad where they will play the bass drum pad. And I can rearrange these 8 pads, but just for ease, let's keep it simple, right? So there's the bass drum. Now we have that in the mix. So let's go ahead and make some adjustments to our sound here. So let's say I want to try the 90 model down here, and I want to put this in the key that I'm working in. So let's go ahead and try and find it. It should be like the E flat. So now that says E flat -8. Let's see, if I hit shift and scroll, I can get fine adjustments to a direct E flat. Perfect. So there's the key of my project, and we can, well, let's say we want just to change things up a little bit. Let's explore a little. So that's kind of cool. Adding some kind of weight to it, and the decay a little bit longer. Well, maybe not too long. And let's see what pulling that sweep back does. Kind of more tonally consistent. And then punch, I don't know, maybe dial that off a little too and try that. You know, we can just kind of get a feel for things, right? So I'm gonna figure out what they're doing. The harmonic content, and then we have click. Let's turn on some click. I always like good transients. And now that leads me to some noise, good little subtle noise. Let's turn on the transient, and that can be controlled from here. So let's go ahead and really define that into our tone. Oh yeah, I mean, get kind of crazy with it. Sure thing. Might just dial that gain back to be below the 0 level. So that's sounding pretty good. Just dialing the volume back, and with all the, you know, thickness and weight that I'm providing now, I can just let it sit. And you know, I'm gonna leave the EQ and everything for just a minute, because I'm gonna cross-reference this with the bass sound. Okay, a lot of stuff going on in the low end there. So I am gonna want to make some changes and hopefully get these to gel better. So let's go into the inserts on the bass line. Yeah, let's start with an EQ. After that, let's go ahead and add in another shelving filter. maybe I want to go ahead and do one more thing and say, let's try the tube drive. I am going to probably pull a lot of my overall volumes down here though. So let's say, and go to that. Let's just dial that back a little bit. Yeah. And I can do that here as well. Okay. Well, anyhow, I'm getting away from everything and I'm liking that pretty much. So enough flying around. Let's get back to the bass drum synth stuff. Now you may guess that I'll need to transpose all of the note data for each sequence. There's only 6 sequences total, so I just got to do it like 5 more times, right? So now I'm grooving with all the bass drum tracks across the project. Next, I'll go to track 6 with my snare sound here, and for the sake of how, let's say this pattern is a unique one that I want to transfer to the multi. And so, I mean, it's not by any stretch, but let's say it is. So what I'm going to do is just select that pattern, right? We hit shift and the cut function will be perfect here. Scroll down to the channel there. Now we want to select the pad that we want for it to copy to, and then we also need to move the playhead cursor to where the beat begins for our paste operation. So beat 2 of measure 1 is where I'm going to paste so that everything is exactly where it needs to be in the grid. And then I have the snare added into this. Now let's take a look at the snare settings and get this guy dialed in. So it's not bad. Bandpass provides some nice potential. Let's keep it kind of classic though. I'm gonna go right up on the noise amount. Let's go ahead and tune that as well to the 5th, which should be right about there, and we'll pull that back a little bit. Let's see, I want the noise color to be, and turn on that transient. Once again, let's go ahead and throw it in. Yeah, that's sounding pretty good. Okay. So now I've gone and added in snare parts on all the different sequences where I feel I need them. Let's move on to the hi-hat sound. Now, if I go to that track and solo, you'll notice that it has this panning effect that I applied. And, you know, it's essentially, it's not a complex thing. It was just a cheap way to get some movement to my percussion that was lacking. So now I could do like I did the snare, but let's just swap the program for a hi-hat program and refine a new sound. So I'll go to that and select the hi-hat model and assign. Okay, so let's go in and find something that works for us. So let's just say we explore the different models once again. Let's go to a noise. I like using noise a lot. Let's go ahead and add a little bit of that, maybe less on the decay. I like a little snappier here. Yeah, let's keep that hold down. Maybe a little bounce. Kind of a nice effect. It's different. Let's see how that sounds combined with everything. Okay, So you may notice that in that program I don't have the mixer section and the reverb and delay like you might have noticed in other videos and things that show that multi. So if I go to that and we look all the way on the last page, you have a mixer and send effects. There's the delay, diffuser, reverb. When you load individual percussion models, they're not going to have this. Instead, you just get your classic inserts that you can use. If I go to there, hit that, and let's see, what am I looking for this time? Well, auto pan. Let's try the sync. Select that. All right. Okay, so I've gone and inserted some effects. I put the auto pan on, I got the spring reverb and a little delay low pass version added in there. So now they're pretty low in the mix. Aside from the auto pan effect, you can't hear the reverb and delay very prominent, you know, just playing with that. And now let's go in and add another instance of a drum synth track type to track 6 here, as clearly the most useful aspect for having a dedicated drum type and model for a track is the potential of playing the drum chromatically. And what better model than the basic little FM drum that is found within the percussion type plugin. So let's select percussion, assign that to all of them, and let's find that model. So there we are, FM synth. Okay, so it's interesting and it's very simplified, as I can see here. You know, if you know anything of complex FM and was hoping to flex some deep algorithms, that isn't happening. So it's a bit gimmicky, but it's a decent tonal option we didn't have before. So let's go ahead and put this into the pattern and maybe add some extra flair with the inserts. We'll figure something out here. So, you know, with FM tuning, things get really crazy because the more you see how we have a basic tune of your carrier and then you have your modulator FM tune. I'm assuming that's how this is set up. So the modulator can change the perceived pitch and all of that. And open up that decay. Let's put some hold into it. Okay, so I've gone and added a couple of inserts to the FM synth here. So I have a phaser and then I have the diffused delay, and that way I've got just a little extra flavor onto that tone, right? And then I've also gone and recorded a basic little pattern here on the final sequence. And I'm kind of at a point here where I could continue just, you know, doing this all night, and I decided, well, you know what, this is enough. Let's go ahead and try and revisit this old project with a fresh spin on the jam and see what happens. So hopefully this will turn out pretty decent. Hope you enjoy. Okay, so not too bad. Yeah, just kind of a new take on the old project here. The Drumsynth has a good scope of sound design elements, making this standalone concept even more standalone than before. While there are some areas that could be streamlined or integrated better, like having the mixer page for the multi-drum type tucked away and the relevant pad mix or pad mute doing nothing when you're on that multi is, I'd like to see that a little bit more streamlined and integrated so that we could actually use the pad mute button or the pad mix there. Anyhow, there is a great deal of potential to use these tools for sound design and mold out all new drum sample groups and key groups. So, sky's the limit as far as drum programs and key groups and stuff that could be created here with drum tones or drum synth engines. So, you could layer and add other samples or just playing them polyphonically and offset with the classic sounds, all kinds of potential there, right? The customization seems endless even where the tools seem to have their limits. The MPC is a powerful sampler. The plugins give a good set of tools for crafting your sound from scratch. And it's a capable sequencer with control hub capabilities. So thank you, Akai Professional. I'm sure it will get better with more updates. This gift that keeps giving has made me quite the fan. I thank you all for joining me in this session, and I hope you learned something to use in your productions. I'd love to hear from all of you and would appreciate that thumbs up if you found this video useful so that I know whether this content is helping you. Keep exploring, have fun, and hope to see you next time. Bye.